Thanks for joining me today. This is going to be a special podcast, and it's a special eulogy or recognition or to memorialize one of my cousins, Curt Moore. Curt Moore passed away on April 3rd, 2022, and how ironic he passed away on my mother's passing, 1994. Her name was Pearl Martinez, and she was one of Curt's favorite aunts and loved to listen to her stories. And Curt himself was a storyteller. He loved to share stories, family stories, and stories about other people, and he loved listening to the stories. One of the stories he shared with me is on one occasion that he had got stung by a bee while he was riding his motorcycle down the highway between Las Vegas, New Mexico, and Raton, New Mexico. And he was traveling at a high rate of speed, and Curt said all of a sudden a bee flew inside his shirt and bit him several times. And he couldn't seem to catch the bee in his shirt, and it kept stinging him repeatedly. So he managed to pull the motorcycle over and stop and put an end to the havoc that was being caused by this little bee in his life. And I can think of circumstances where we need to just pause, stop, and restart what we were doing, just like Curt had to restart. On another occasion, I remember when Curt's brother, Russ, and I were little kids, and we were playing outside in the backyard and planning something, and Curt walked up to us and he said, "What are you guys doing?" And of course, us as older kids said, "Nothing." And Curt turned around and he walked away and he says, "I'm telling Mom." Well, we did all we could to stop Curt. And we kept saying, "Come back, Curt. Curt, come back here." I think we'd like to do that today, to be able to say, "Curt, come back. Come back." But unfortunately, he's gone. And I think it's a blessing in disguise. Curt has moved on. And we should learn to do the same things in our own lives. How do we move on? Curt was the teen idol of Las Vegas, New Mexico. I often refer to him as the Fonzie of New Mexico. He sported around on his motorcycle, and he was a very young and attractive person. And he really was a gregarious type person. He enjoyed being around people. There was a couple of summers that Curt lived with me at my home in Fort Collins, and I got him a job working with the Campana family as a hod carrier. Hod carrying is a very laborious job. It's mixing mud, building scaffolding, and stacking bricks for the bricklayers. It's hard labor. But Curt did well, and the family spoke about his greatness for many years and often inquired about, "How's Curt doing?" And Curt was good. He managed to run Bingham Hill with me, a big hill out in LaPorte, Colorado, about 5 miles a day. And we'd run every day, and then he managed to take time out to go work out at the gym. And he just kept himself in so much shape. Even there was times in my house when I kept the house so cold because I was trying to save energy. Curt would come down to my room and he'd say, "Hey Ray, look at this, watch." And he'd blow his breath, and you could see the coldness emanate from his breath. And we just laugh about it, and he says, "Thanks a lot, Ray." Throughout the years, Curt was such a strong person. Curt knew how to endure and what it took to be an achiever. We certainly know the struggles and the health issues that Curt suffered later on in years, especially in his last days, that even became more difficult. Curt's mom, my Aunt Nancy, obviously took care of Curt when he was born and did everything for him until he got on his own. And then in his last days, my Aunt Nancy took care of Curt because he couldn't be on his own anymore. Curt's ambulatory life became a burden, but it was a loving burden, as no mother could do, like my Aunt Nancy. Of course, the brothers and other family members would help as well. Curt died on April 3rd, 2022 at 11:20 p.m. We won't forget that. And even in the Mass that we held on April 23rd, 2022, it was held on a couple other cousins' birthdays, Mike and Pat. They were twins. And how ironic that is. Of course, I don't believe in ironicness. I think there's no such thing as a coincidence. I believe all these things are coincidences. I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you are willing to take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, "There is no passion to be found in playing small and settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living." Nevertheless, we will move on and take lessons of the successes in Curt's life and not focus on the disruptions and the interferences of his life. We all knew what he was capable of and what he was able to demonstrate and accomplish in his younger life. The strengths that Curt possessed, whether it was spiritually, physically, or mentally. Curt had this wonderful, gregarious personality. He was easy to laugh and always fun to be around socially. When Curt lived with me, he was always had a sense of loyalty, trust, honesty, commitment, and a love for family. These are the things that I will never forget and always remember. Sometimes we lose sight about the great moments in a person's life. Dr. Charles Swindoll once said that a tree is better measured when it's down. Now we can find and remember the richness and the fullness of Curt's life. And that's what we should hang on to and relish. The synthesis of Curt's intellect and emotion in his work was powerful when it was put into action. He illustrated that not only in his relationship with people, but in his work ethics, even as a hod carrier, to being a manager of the hotel industry. Sometimes the obstacles in life won't change, but maybe what needs to change is us. Curt has given us every reason in the world to pause and maybe change our ways for the better. I watched a popular priest in New York City being interviewed on ABC many years ago. The one final question they asked him was what was his purpose in serving in New York City as a priest. And he responded, "I am here to comfort the ones that are disturbed and to disturb the ones who are too comfortable." I think we get too comfortable sometimes in life. Curt is not with us physically anymore, but he does reside and comfort us in our hearts forevermore. Sometimes we are left confused with the why question because we just don't understand it all. I'll close with this one last quote from St. Augustine. He says, "Understanding is the reward of faith. Therefore seek not to understand that ye may believe, but believe that ye may understand." We all should understand this much, that Curt has given us a reason to live. He has left us a legacy of friendship, family, and loyalty in our fondest moments in his life. Let us all live the life of Christ as much as we are able to, and God will take care of the rest. May the peace of God be with us forevermore, and let us all be in peace, knowing what St. Paul once said in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 8. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And I do believe that is where Curt is today. My thanks to the family who gave me the opportunity to do the eulogy at Curt's funeral, his brothers, Jay Moore, Rodney Moore, Russ Moore and his wife, Veronica, and their precious mother, Nancy, and her friend, Rudy. God bless you today.